Hello, friends. It's time for Talk for Dodge, the show that uncovers the stories behind the houses and the heart of our community. I'm Jeremiahjcondon.
And I'm Todd McCubbin, and today we are here with Representative Ann Meyer. But before we get into that, let's do a quick market update.
Market update. We have sold more houses than we did last year. You know, last year was our first really down year, and we talk about that all the time.
Yep.
And we have sold 16 more houses. Our closed sales are actually slightly less, but we have a very high average. It's about $25,000 higher than the house prices last year.
Yep. And we've talked about the reason for that. Just to reiterate, it's because people are starting to get used to the interest rate, and the people that were holding off because they're going to buy a $200,000 home are now just going ahead and buying them instead of sitting so long. So
And
like 2023, you didn't sell a $225,000 house, or very rarely, and now this year that's a lot more of what you see.
And we're selling more of the higher end houses still.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like the last 3 years.
Yep.
And then it was kind of odd because, you know, February we had that warm time. We had a big month compared to last year, but June was way down.
Really?
Compared to last year, although we're only, July 9th, and we have 6 sales to 12 sales.
So July's a lot busier. I know I'm a lot busier in July than I was in June, so I can see that.
All right. And then we have the featured house of the week, 161 Parkwood Circle for $399,000. It's 2,164 square foot. It's out in the country club.
Yep.
3-car garage.
And a garage
done.
for the golf cart on top of the 3 cars. So you're not going to waste one of your 3-car garages on a golf cart. There's another garage for that in the back.
Yes, and if you don't golf, like that has like a workshop.
Right. You can do whatever you want back there.
Like it's pretty cool.
And it goes on forever. It's like you walk in the house and you see the main level, then you go upstairs and it's another big level, then you go downstairs and it's just huge. It's cool.
Yeah. And if you need main floor living, everything you need's on one level.
Yep. You don't have to go upstairs if you don't want to.
Yep.
So now that we've covered our normal stuff each week, let's get into talking to Ann Meyer. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and let the audience know who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for having me. This is very nice to be able to talk about what we've done this session. So I am the state representative for what is now House District 8. We had redistricting 2 years ago. I represent Fort Dodge, Badger, Vincent, Duncombe, Otho, Lehigh, and then rural areas around there.
So all the cool places.
All the cool places. I was elected in 2018. I originally ran for office because I was concerned about the healthcare system. When we first moved to Fort Dodge back in 2000, I worked in the hospital for Iowa Central and Iowa Heart. And I noticed a change. I left probably in 2005, stayed home, not really stayed home, but I did a lot with my son during the school times of his life. And then when he could drive himself to school, I decided to go back to work. So I was teaching clinicals for Iowa Central from 2011 on. I really enjoyed it. I really loved being at the bedside. I noticed when I came back, there was a different lay of the land. A lot of the nurses that I worked with, a lot of them are still there. Some of them are retired now, but great nurses were now in administration. And there were a lot more regulations in healthcare, and I complained to my senator about that, and he goes, "Oh, well, you should, run for office." I said, well...
Note to self, if I'm ever a senator, don't tell somebody I should be their competition.
He said, try, maybe you want to run for state representative, not his spot.
Oh, okay.
And he's very good at what we make a great team because he is financial and business, and I'm healthcare, and we complement each other nicely. And then I also had a friend down in Carroll who served in the legislature since 2014 in the House, and I said, well, is this really something you think I could do? After talking to my husband and my son, and they were on board. And he said, well, yeah. He goes, what's your worry about it? And I said, he goes, what, do you think you're not smart enough? He goes, because I can tell you, I sit with 99 other people, and you're plenty smart enough. So I went in and talked to leadership, and we've been on board ever since. So I announced I announced I was running in 2017 and was elected in 2018. Not very many people in healthcare in the Iowa House. So when I was reelected in 2020, I was named the chair of what is now Health and Human Services. That's the healthcare policy in the state, which is a great fit for me. I love the policy side, and it's a learning curve, and it's a lot of research. But I've really enjoyed being the chair for the last 4 years. So that's where we are now.
Awesome. Well, you talked about your journey on how you got to where you're at, and you talked about how you had to talk to your husband and your son about this, because this isn't just you. I've noticed your husband and your son a lot of places knocking on doors. Yeah. Did that go into their decision, or is that something that was just happenstance afterwards to say, well, if you're going to do this, this is a family thing, then we're going to do this together?
Yes, it was a family thing, and that's why my husband was on board. He's super supportive, my best campaign volunteer, my biggest supporter.
He was the sign guy too, wasn't he?
Signs,
yes. Knocking on doors.
Yeah, door knocking signs. And,
I want to hear like one good door knocking story.
So I was knocking with a volunteer back in, it was 2020, I think. And we had been knocking for hours, and I have to feel like you might really be a supporter before I even ask if you'll put a sign up for me. And so it was probably 5:30, and he goes, okay, where are you guys? And I'm going to meet you over there and start knocking. He said, how many signs do you have up yet today? And I said, I don't have any signs up, but we've done this neighborhood and this neighborhood. So he comes over to our neighborhood. He's on the next block over. And he said, okay, 2 signs on the next block. Let's go. Pick it up.
You need goals.
Yes.
You miss
Exactly.
100% of the shots you don't take. So start asking.
Yes, you do.
So I'm pretty comfortable, especially if I'm door knocking for someone else. I can say, hey, if you're supporting, do you mind putting a sign in your yard? And usually people are pretty good about that, unless they just don't want to support it, don't want to show that support anywhere. But I will say generally when I ask, someone will say yes. So yeah, that's just the way it goes. Jacob, my son, he was surprisingly supportive, because he's kind of keeps to himself, shy, not shy, quiet. But he's quiet.
He is.
And I didn't think that he was going to be completely on board with everything, but he is. He started walking in the parades with me, and he had a little break in between college and med school, so he had 2 years where he was working at the hospital as a scribe, and so he door knocked with me. He's been very supportive, so I'm very lucky to have that supportive family, because I've seen other friends that really don't have that support.
You almost have to have it's a family deal. Because I ask Joyce all the time, should I run for office? And she's like, no, not ever. I don't want to be a politician's wife. And I'm like, okay, I can do more on this side then, and we'll go that direction.
And it's funny you say that, because when Senator Kreinbrink first talked to me about it, and he talked to me about it twice, and I said, listen, I am a nurse, I'm a teacher, I love what I do, and right now, I'd say probably about 95% of the people I deal with love me. Why would I want to go into a job where exactly 50% of the people are going to hate me off the bat? And it's true. Yeah. I mean, I have friends that don't talk to me anymore.
Right.
So
that is tough.
It's
and
what
I've
it
heard
is.
that from other people
really
too.
tough.
Like it's crazy how you get elected, and 49.9% of the population suddenly, I don't agree with you anymore, and I don't like you. Yeah. And it's hard,
and
but you
never
just make
sat
it
down
happen.
and had a real conversation.
And that's what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
So in this last session, what were some of the key issues?
And I'll start with the assembly, because our assemblies are 2 years. And so the 23-24 assembly we had some really great wins for healthcare. One of the main issues that I ran on was healthcare. And as I was knocking on doors in that first election, I quickly determined that mental health services were severely lacking, not only in our area, but everywhere around us. If I can go to someone's door that I've never met before, and they will talk to me about, 20 minutes about a close family member, this is what's going on in their lives, this is what I've had to go through, they've been in this many hospitals, they've been in this many emergency rooms. I had one gal, and this was when I was knocking with Jacob one day, who invited us in. She said, my brother is a veteran of the Gulf War, and he lost some friends there. And it flipped a switch in him. And she said, I don't know where he is half the time. You may see him on the streets walking around, because he's still in Fort Dodge, but he started on street drugs. I don't know that's where he started, but that's where he ended up, on street drugs. And she said he definitely had some mental health issues, because mental health and substance abuse do go hand in hand.
Oh, definitely.
She brought us in. She goes, this is what my brother looked. She's going through photo albums. She goes, this is what my brother looked like a few years ago, and this is where he is now. And she said, it's sad, and I don't know how to get help for him. I had another gal who said, my granddaughter, she's been kicked out of school. We've had her in several different school districts now. She's been in hospitals. We're having problems getting her final treatment.
Getting her the help she needs.
So, yeah. So in the last several years, we've passed some really great bills. So one of the big early ones that we passed was, we know there weren't enough psychiatrists in Iowa.
Yeah.
So we passed a bill that was supported by the Senate and the governor, which doesn't always happen.
No.
That established 12 new psychiatry residencies through the University of Iowa, and we're funding those. So that means, in several years, we should have more and more psychiatrists coming out.
12 a year doesn't sound like a lot, but do you know how many psychiatrists are in the state, or about? I mean, is that like
We are, per capita, we're 50th in the nation. So we are at the lowest.
So 12 will make a difference.
It'll make a difference. And
then after 10 years, it's 120.
Yeah. So to that point, that's what I thought too. But to develop the residencies, you have to go through the American College of Physicians to get these residencies established. There's a lot of back work. So actually, this July is the first residency that's going to be filled, and I think that we've filled 3 or 4 of those spots. There's not enough patients in that area, in the Iowa City area, to do that. So this year we added on to that. We said, okay, they don't have to be in Iowa City. We're going to do one at Mercy, one in Des Moines. We're going to do one at Broadlawns.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to open that up a little bit.
Because so much of the state does need that help.
Yeah.
And yeah, Broadlawns is a state hospital, correct?
That's county hospital.
County?
Yep.
Okay. And then, so all those, every one of those, getting them out. It's kind of weird that there's not enough patients in Iowa City, but here we're bustling.
Yeah. I don't know if it's not truly enough patients. It might be truly enough patients because we don't have enough people to treat them.
Okay, that makes sense.
So not enough trainers as well.
Well, there's a lot of Hawkeye fans there that need a lot of help.
Says Mr. Iowa State.
Mr. Iowa State here.
We've also, another bill we passed early on was creating a rate for intensive psychiatric care through Medicaid. Everyone knows that the lower you're reimbursed, that those services aren't going to be focused on.
Right.
They aren't going to be focused on by the healthcare system. So we increased the rate for regular mental health care, and we've increased the rate by $13 million last year and another $1.4 million this year. So we're doing a lot of investments in increasing those rates to make sure that we have professionals to deliver that care.
Right. Well, if you don't have the money to hire the people to do what you need to do, it does become something that gets swept under the rug.
And if they can make 20% more in Nebraska or Missouri, or that's another thing that we've done with HHS is we've done a state comparison. All of our surrounding states, what the Medicaid rates that are covered in other states, and we've boosted those rates to make sure that we're on par with the other states. That brings our healthcare staff here.
So it sounds terrible. We're trying to keep up with the Joneses, but if you don't in this instance, it really has an effect on our healthcare and the mental health care of the people
Absolutely.
You serve and in the state of Iowa. That's cool. And it's hard to think about that grandiose. Normally in Talk Fort Dodge, we talk about stuff that happens right here in local. Mm-hmm. But for somebody to be working at the state level to make Fort Dodge better and in your community and your district, it's kind of a cool thing to think about that, we're trying to keep up with Nebraska so we can make Fort Dodge, all your areas, everybody, a better results.
Yeah. And this is, mental health care is a big problem, a big thing that all of our law enforcement work on. And it takes a lot of their time and resources. So,
Our chief talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, and they're not trained for that. I mean, they might get some training, but they shouldn't be there to take care. They should be taking care of crime and that kind of thing, and in all of our opinions. So, and
a lot of times those people don't need to go to jail. They need to go to talk to somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
And figure out what's going on and get on the right meds or whatever.
Yep.
And our region last year hired someone to coordinate that care when police do respond to those incidences. So hopefully they'll, get their medications, get them set up with they don't get their medications. They get them set up with their healthcare providers and make sure that they have availability for their services.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. I had a family member the other day that we were like, have they applied for disability yet? And they're like, well, no. Well, how do you do that? I'm like, I suppose you call somebody. I didn't even know who to call, but to have that person you could call and say, okay, this is how you get through that path. And
exactly.
People, if you've never dealt with that, some people live that lifestyle, some people don't. And if you're not in that, where, people around you have gone down that road, where would you start? And I'm like, I don't know who to call. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't even know where to start if that happened to me or somebody I do. So
exactly.
It's kind of nice to know there's that person around that can do that.
And then building on that this year, we have, the earlier children can be treated, the more we invest up in the front, the less we're investing in the back end. Mm-hmm. So we've increased the rates for pediatric mental institutions for children. So I think we were at $463 a day. We've directed Medicaid to increase that rate to $760 some dollars. Right now, as of first of this year, we had 23 kids that have very intense needs. We don't have beds for them in Iowa. They're being treated out of state. We're paying for it, but they're being treated out of state. And that's our obligation to care for these kids. Mm-hmm. So with this rate increase, we're hoping to attract companies to take care of that. And I visited one that is very effective, and they operate in Florida, Georgia, Arizona. I can't remember where else, but we've got a building down in Des Moines. We are like on the final edges of negotiation to get them to open a unit. It's a private institution, with public-private partnership, is what you always hear about. But if we can take care of those kids, number one, it's going to be more efficient use of taxpayer dollars. But number two, remember, the parents don't go to those institutions with them, so they can't really visit or be, other than video, they can't really be involved in their care. So this will just be a better all-around situation for them.
And to help children when they're young, to fix it now.
Yeah.
So then when they grow up and damage more stuff and themselves, you know.
And the younger you get to somebody, the more you can facilitate that change, and it's long-term change. I mean, personality is normally set by the time you're 2 or 3 years old. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if you can get to them while they're still developing some of that stuff, and it sounds weird, that's awful young, but, you know, get to them and treat those things young. And
the youngest, so that was one of the questions I asked when we were down visiting the facility. The youngest kids they have there are 4 and 5 years old, and then they've got them up to adult 18, and then they facilitate access for them in the community when they're adults. So I'm very hopeful, optimistic that this is going to be a positive for Iowa.
Yeah. Yay. Oh, I think it would be. So one of the other questions I have is, so there's a lot of people in the Senate and the House. How do you collaborate with other legislators that sometimes agree with you and sometimes don't agree with you to teach them the importance of mental health and what you're doing?
So this is everyone in both chambers have door knocked. This is a problem in every single one of our districts. It's not just metro. It's not just rural. It's everywhere. So actually, those conversations, especially for mental health care, have been relatively easy. It's just the money part of it. It's negotiating between the chambers. The governor has been very supportive of all these changes. But I will say most of them have been born in the House. So most everyone's been on board.
Okay.
That's it is important. That's
cool. In fact, most of the bills, and I always take pictures from my Facebook page of the voting boards whenever we pass a bill like this, and they're mostly all green. So
what are your long-term goals for where the mental health is going here in Iowa?
Again, we need to attract, and I think Supervisor Campbell has said this several times when I've been listening to him, and then just in our conversations, he's been very helpful in the mental health field. Now, remember, that's not his background, but he learned a lot about it, and we worked together for the past 6 years, 5 years, probably not in my first year. But it is, right now, we don't have a funding problem with mental health. We have a workforce issue. So that's where I see this going, doing more to attract workers to the state. And the increase in rates is going to definitely do that. And then just highlighting all of our quality of life issues and how Iowa is a great state to live. It's, when you're talking about cost of living and quality of life, it's one of the best states in the union. I mean, and that's been in many, many surveys.
The Parkwood Circle house we talked about at the beginning would be $1 million house most places in the country.
Exactly.
It is gorgeous and it's perfect, and that's one of the things and that's most people's biggest expense, their biggest purchase is their home. So, I mean, if you can get a home for half the price you can at some of these other places, think of all the other disposable income and stuff you can do as far as quality of life and doing things.
Exactly.
The average home in the United States is $415,000. Our average, I just read, $165,000.
Right.
Wow. I mean,
that's a crazy difference.
And we moved here from the Detroit metro, the suburbs. And my husband used to drive 60 minutes, 20 miles each way to work. And he's 5 minutes from home now. He could attend things in the middle of the day. Oh, you know.
Yep.
You've got 4 kids, and they are very active.
Run back and forth.
Yep, you can.
But parents could go home.
It's a good
in between
family
dropping
life.
things off.
Yes.
Kids.
Yeah.
Well,
when I have clients from out of state, they're like, how are we going to look at 4 houses in an hour and a half? I'm like, well, because they're 4 minutes apart.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's across town.
20 years ago, I was bartending, and a guy was sitting there, and they were working on the bridges here in Iowa. And he said, he was talking to his wife on the phone. He's like, honey, this bridge we're working on is 18 miles away, and it takes me 18 minutes to get there. He's like, that's incredible. And I heard him say that, and he hung up the phone, and I kind of laughed and talked to him for a second. He's like, no, man, you don't understand. He goes, I'm from San Diego, and it takes me an hour and a half just to get to my office in the morning, and then another hour and a half to get to where we need to go. He goes, I get on the road at 5:30 in the morning, and I'm not home until like 9, 10 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and he's like, I would really consider moving here just to do the exact same thing that I do, but be at home a lot more with the family.
Exactly. This is the perfect state to raise a family. It truly is.
And I always say that essential air service flying to Chicago.
Oh yeah.
It's one of the greatest things on the planet for anything like this. You know, you can say, you know, it's 5 minutes to get to work. You know, when it's cold out, fly to Chicago, fly somewhere, you know, go somewhere warm in the winter, or, you know, so you can stay warm. And it's been we use it all the time. I absolutely love it.
And, you know, it's funny because Jim's family lives in Atlanta. And so you think Delta to Atlanta, it's a one stop from Des Moines. And I needed to go out there. Recently, I was pricing out a ticket to help his mom out. She'd had some health issues. And I priced it with Delta, and I said, you know, I'm just going to price it out here just because I didn't want to do the drive and all that. That was going to add to the rest of the day, and the times are sometimes off. And the flight from here to Atlanta, even though I had that little stop in Chicago, was actually less time for me being in the air. I'm less than a mile from the airport, and I don't have to pay to park.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to pay to drive to Des Moines. You don't have to get a hotel room if you leave early in the morning. I love flying out of here.
Yeah, that's great. I will talk about one other thing that I think is really going to make a difference in attracting all healthcare people here. Last year, we finally got medical liability tort reform across the line. And if you're not in healthcare, you haven't dealt with a lot of lawsuits, that's a huge deal. We had a lawsuit in 2023 in Iowa City, I think it was Mercy in Iowa City, that was the highest result for non-economic damages, which is by definition pain and suffering, and it's for an OB. OB is especially high because, you know, the length of time is 18 years. It's from when that baby is born, and they can go all the way out to 18 years. For regular liability, I think it's only 2 or 3 years that they can bring a case. It was a $92 or $93 million award, and around $50 million was pain and suffering. And so what we've got is we have unlimited for economic damages, meaning, you know, anything that if you're losing money from you can't work. We even put in the bill that if you are a mom or a dad that is a stay-at-home parent, generally they're not bringing in any income. We put the income that it takes to care for children or dependent adults in that. We have the highest non-economic damage award in our surrounding states, which is what we compare ourselves with. Mm-hmm. And it's $1 million if it's a practice, or it's $2 million if it's a hospital system, which all the surrounding states are between $250,000 and $750,000 award. We passed that finally in 2023. In 2023, December, I was talking we meet with the hospital CEOs and, looking at priorities for next year. And he said, I just want you to know, I went to the board today, and this is the first year I did not have to ask for an increase because of liability insurance. So it's really making a difference in just that year. So
Awesome.
when you are a med student or and you're in the Midwest and you're looking at all of the different costs of liability insurance when you're going to practice, that also makes a difference. Where and you see a headline where, oh, Iowa just awarded $92 million. You're going to say, oh, I might just go to Nebraska, or I might just go Missouri, whatever. So that's going to make a big difference. And we've been trying to do that for years and years and years.
And finally got it through.
Finally got it done.
Good job.
Yeah. Really.
So did you go out for a nice supper or something after that finally passes, or do you celebrate, jump up and down?
You know what?
I want to see Ann super happy.
I believe me, I was super happy. That was a long debate, and I took a lot of heat from the lawyers, and even in my own party. I mean, I was, berated on the floor, and it's like, I know we're doing the right things. So, no, it was kind of late when we got out that night, so I'm not much of a night person.
It was time for bed after a day like that.
Time for a nap.
That's right. So one of the things, since you're not in healthcare every day anymore, but you had been for years, how do you keep yourself informed, and how do you about new things coming up in healthcare? Where do you reach out to find these things? I know you talked about door knocking, but are there other resources?
Well, I still have my license, and I still have to do continuing education to maintain a license, just like everyone else does. I usually do mine by mail, though, and I always have. And we also have availability to go to national conferences on healthcare. As the chair, I've been able to do several conferences on what other states are doing, what other problems are coming in. And a lot of it's a networking system. Like, we think that, just for example, we think that Iowa's, we just don't have enough people here to work. And, every other state is probably doing really well. And that's the first thing we talk about when we go to these national meetings. Because the last one I was at, there was New York and Massachusetts, Maryland, North Carolina, West Virginia, and they're talking about different, Medicaid needs and services. And I said, so are you guys all okay with workforce? And I said, no, none of us have any workforce. So it's an issue across the country.
Okay.
And I think that, again, I just want to push that back. If we can do what we can to make it financially equal to the states around us, and we can, again, financially equal as far as rates and as far as liability insurance, but we can also talk about the quality of life in Iowa. That'll make a huge difference.
I agree.
It is a great quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like that's crazy industry to have a shortage. When I went to BV, there were so many psychology minors and majors going through. I mean, there was 20 in the class. It's like, where did they all go? What did they all do? It just kind of boggles my mind because it's like an intriguing industry.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of people go, but then we're always short.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think historically, because my master's is in counseling,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked at the prison at the time. The only reason I got it in counseling is because I was an officer. I wanted to be a counselor, and I got that counselor job, which paid really well because you work for the state. And I absolutely loved the job, but as I'm going through that, I'm looking at all these other kids in the class, and I was an adult. I was 38, 39, almost 40 when I got my master's. And I'm like, all these kids are working on this, and these jobs don't pay enough to support the money you're putting into a master's degree on any level. I mean, they're paying, $14, $15 an hour for some of these jobs. And I'm like, how are you going to be $80,000 in student debt and make $20 an hour? I mean, at the time I was making probably 25, 30. I was making really good money, but that's, I think, a lot of it. You're talking about the kids that are going for psychology, and the psychology industry just doesn't support that money that you can put into it. And I think you kind of hit that on the head by bringing those rates up. Now these jobs can pay more, whether you're at LifeWorks, whether you're at the hospital, whether you're at, who has the thrift store? One Vision. Whether you're in any of those, if they can get that rate up to where you can take care of these kids better and these people better, you can actually start justifying these degrees and take care of a lot of that workforce. Because a lot of people, especially young, want to get up and they want to help people and they want to make a difference in this world. And they see sociology and psychology as a way to do that. But when they actually get in the workforce and realize I'm going to make $10 an hour taking kids to see their parents and stuff like this, that's a really hard job. My youngest son did that for a while. And it's just not supportive. And we have to get those to where, the people that want to help are compensated well enough they can do it long term.
Exactly, because it is it's an emotionally hard job too.
Oh, absolutely.
And you bring up social workers. We are increasing the amount of social workers in Iowa. We've appropriated more funding for them. The department has raised the pay, but Department of Health and Human Services, they do incredible work with so many of our kids, and making sure that they're they have to investigate a lot and protect, and the kids that are pulled from the home and are in foster care, and like you said, they have to meet and take the kids to see their parents. It's a hard job.
My oldest daughter does foster care, and she's got 3 right now, and it is so hard on her.
Yeah, and thank God for all the foster parents out there.
Oh, they've worked so hard at it.
Amazing. And I know a lot of foster parents that, they say it. There's a lifespan on how long they can do it. I mean, it can be draining because of the problems that the kids have had in the past, and those past traumas, especially when they're young and you don't think about it. That's one of the reasons we were talking about the mental health intensity rate being increased. And you had talked about colleagues. My counterparts in the Senate on the HHS budget and policy committee were not quite where we were. My budget chair is a psychologist. He's a social worker and does therapy. And he also walks the walk. He's also adopted 6 children and fostered many. There are children out there who have gone through trauma, and that doesn't go away, and it manifests at different times. So children can adjust, and then they hit, their teen
like a
years.
certain age and stuff comes back.
And again, foster parents are doing great work. We have a pilot program out in Cedar Rapids area right now, which hopefully will expand. Higher rates for foster parents who are willing to take in the higher needs children, because it's so important. And we've got a lot of restrictions on that. The department's put a lot of restrictions on that. You can't have more than so many kids in the house, and you have to go through special training.
And the people that do that don't do it for the money.
Oh, no.
No,
they don't do it for the money. It's
just the love of trying to make the world a better place. And
Could you imagine how many headaches you'd have to be like a grade school counselor?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the counselors are, again.
I mean, they're almost saints.
They truly are, because
5th grade girls playground. Oh, my
are
goodness.
Are you speaking from experience?
Maybe.
He was a 5th grade girl once.
Well, I have a little one going into 6th grade, so.
Yeah.
I possibly could. Oh, boy. They're not underappreciated, but they're definitely underrated, because they do the Lord's work for sure.
They do.
So on a local level, is there anything that the community can do to help keep a focus on mental health, or donate to certain charities, or is there anything just normal humans can do at the local level to help with these issues?
We do have a lot of great programs in the area. And I was looking, I noticed the SALT Center that's gone up in the past year, I think it's been. I I think the people that they may be that they are helping along during the winter and the summer, during the times of need, probably have some issues. Beacon, the Lotus homeless centers, the food banks. There are so many important charities to support, and it seems overwhelming at times, but anything related to homeless, because generally there might be some issues. Yeah, and substance abuse. I mean, substance abuse and mental illness go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
And this, if you don't mind, I can touch on a huge bill that we passed this year.
Heck yeah.
Let's do it.
So throughout the state, we've had behavioral health regions, and we were in a huge one that stretched from Fort Dodge all the way to the Mississippi. We got out of that, I think, in my second or third year. I joined the one that is centered in Ames. So these regions are going to be dissolved through the new behavioral health system. When we took the mental health levy off of property taxes, the state is now providing the money for mental health. So we want to make sure that that mental health and substance abuse are all in the same area. So there's going to be 7 behavioral health substance abuse districts. They're going to be managed by an accountable service organization. Those will be released in August. It is a huge reworking of the mental health system, though, and it's going to provide greater equity throughout the state of services, because right now we've got in code what services need to be offered, and they're not offered in all the regions yet. And it's been a long time that those regions have been in place. So that is a broad overview, but that is going to be happening by 2025, July, that those will be in place.
So there's a lot of big changes in the structure of government coming in the next couple of years. So
there absolutely is, and this was when Iowa Department of Public Health and Iowa Department of Human Services merged and became DHHS, Department of Health and Human Services. That was the beginning of the government streamlining, and it has been very effective. And we have a great director, Director Garcia. She's fabulous. We have a great director of mental health services in the state, Marissa Ianson. We have the Medicaid director. Everyone is, we have a good team in place, and I think this is going to be very beneficial for everyone seeking those services. One more thing, we had 2 years ago put a nationwide number into place. So there used to be like 1-800-BETS-OFF and 1-800 Your Life Iowa and all this other things. Right now, there's a nationwide number you can call for mental health services, 988, wherever you are. You are connected to a local person, a statewide person. You can talk to them, tell them what your issue is. You can be a parent, you can be a family member, you can be the patient. They will direct you to the services you need, or sometimes all they need to do is talk or text. So that service is available. And when you were talking about earlier, not knowing how to access the system, a good first step is the 988 nationwide number, no matter where you are.
So instead of 911, 988.
Right.
Nice. I'm going to try.
Never knew that. I just learned.
I think a lot of people just learned something from that.
That's one big one.
So I have one final thing, and I think we can wrap up, but why did you choose Fort Dodge, and why do you love it? So why do you love being here and representing the people? This is Talk Fort Dodge. We have to talk about us for a little bit in the region.
Well, I will tell you, so like I said, we moved here in 2000. So we've been here 24 years now, Memorial Day. And the commute was getting hard. We weren't really, even though we had family in the area in Michigan, we weren't really seeing them a whole lot. My husband was recruited out here, and he said, I'm just going to go take a look. I said, well, I can't because I'm babysitting my niece and the boys are here. Just you go take a look. I trust you. And he came out here. He loved it. He said the lifestyle is amazing. The people are great. The hospital is up to date. It's better than the hospital we worked in. And he said, I put some money down on a lot. So I said, okay. So I came out the next month, and I felt the same way. Everyone was so welcoming, and we love it here. And
that's awesome.
It was just something I wanted. So why did I choose to represent? I just wanted to do something in service. Jim and I have always volunteered throughout our times here. And really, I just wanted to make a difference in statewide healthcare policy.
Well, I think you're doing an amazing job.
Oh,
and you know how you just said, like, the service. I've went down there with a number of different organizations, and you've always been there to, like, answer questions and help out. And not all the state representatives do that great of a job of showing everything, and you're there every time. So thank you. You know, it makes everybody feel like we have a voice.
Well, and everyone does have a voice. So if you ever need to get in touch with me, please look at my Facebook page, or even just type me into the internet, and my legislative page will come up. That's my cell phone number. You can always call or text me, email me, any questions, anyone out there listening. You know, if you've got an issue, I've got people I text with at least once a week who either say, this is going great, but mostly, we need to change this.
Yeah. Get on it. You got a job.
This is a terrible policy. Change it.
Yeah, make it better. And that's what we do.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for visiting with us today. And I look forward to working with you more in the future and seeing you and you continuing to do what you do for our community.
Well, thank you guys. And again, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's a wrap at today's episode of Talk Fort Dodge.
Stay connected with us on social media and join us next time as we continue exploring Fort Dodge's stories through the lens of two lifelong Dodgers. I'm Jeremiah Condon.
And I'm Todd McCubbin, and this is Talk Fort Dodge.